Last year, I reviewed the Evo 80, a TKL pre-built option from Qwertykeys, and I really enjoyed it. But today, we've got a keyboard that's from their popular Neo line, and it is not a pre-built keyboard. The Neo60 Core is an affordable 60% kit that includes everything you need to get the feel and sound you're looking for with a high-quality aluminum case. It's available in some pretty nice color options, and another thing that's very attractive is the price. It starts at just $79, and the wired hot swap version I have here is only $109. Let's take a closer look. Before we dive in, I want to mention that Qwertykeys sent me the Neo60 Core for the purpose of reviewing it. I was not paid to make this video, and Qwertykeys has no input on my review. I do have some purchase links for retailers in the description, and one or two of them are probably affiliate links. I know Divinity is one of the retailers for the Neo60 Core in the US, and that one will be an affiliate link, which just helps support this channel. I've been reviewing keyboards for just about 2 years now, and I spend a lot of time reviewing pre-built keyboards because, well, they just appeal to a large customer base. But the majority of my personal favorite keyboards from both a visual standpoint and a use standpoint are ones that came as a kit, which allowed me to assemble them in my preferred configuration. If you rewind just a few years, custom keyboard kits with quality metal construction, optional weights and accent pieces and multiple plate choices, multiple color choices, they would cost you at least $300. And by the time you sort of optioned them out, like adding options to a car, your final sticker price could be pretty shocking. Just ask me how much I spent on my Odin R3 from KBD fans. And those keyboards are still out there, but in 2025, we've got keyboards like the Neo60 Core, which is getting you some very nice quality materials and also that personalized design and final assembly for as little as $109 with a hot swap wired PCB. Of course, you still have to supply your own switches and keycaps, so the total cost will depend on what you choose there, but the whole point is that the base kit, your starting point, is not maxing out your budget. Now, all that being said, if you are looking for a little bit more of a unique case design and you're okay with increasing the budget a bit, Neo also has the 60 and 65 CU, which offer some similar features here, but a little more artistic case design features and a brass or copper case bottom, in addition to having WK, WKL, and HHKB options. A WK Neo60 CU in the same teal color with a brass bottom and brass weight, a wired hot swap PCB and the polypropylene plate, that would start at $195. So the core line from Neo is all about classic design, quality materials, and that personalized build for an accessible price. Let's start with our rundown of the features and specs, then we'll do a sound test of a couple different configurations, and then we'll talk about pros and cons. The Neo60 Core is a 60% keyboard kit with 61 keys and can be assembled in an ANSI or an ISO layout. The construction is unibody aluminum with 8 anodized color options and 3 spray-coated color options. There are also 7 options for the accent weight on the case bottom. The dimensions are 293 by 109 millimeters with a front height of 18.2 millimeters and a rear height of 35 millimeters without the keycaps. The fully assembled weight is around 1,500 grams or 3.3 pounds depending on your configuration. The typing angle is 8 degrees and there are no adjustable feet. The non-flex cut PCB is available in soldered, wired hot swap, and tri-mode hot swap options. The tri-mode option includes 3 Bluetooth connections, 2.4 GHz, and it comes with 2 2200 mAh battery cells pre-installed in the case. There are 5 plate options including carbon fiber, aluminum, FR4, POM, and polypropylene. Extra plates can be purchased separately and the solder PCB can also be assembled plateless. 2 mounting options are included, silicone bean gasket mount and a gummy O-ring. The kit includes a switch pad, PCB foam, and a thin sheet of pour-on foam for the case bottom. However, a plate fork tool is included if you want to go foamless for the PCB assembly. The PCB connects to the pre-installed daughter board using pogo pins and there are no cables to attach. A set of clip-in PCB mount stabilizers are included in the kit, but the PCB also supports screw-in stabilizers. The PCB does not have per-key backlighting, but there is a caps lock indicator light. The Neo60 Core is VIA compatible for remapping and macro creation. The tri-mode PCB has some additional functions pre-programmed for switching connection modes. The price of the Neo60 Core kit depends on how you configure it. The total price ranges from $79 for an anodized case with solder PCB, steel weight, and no plate, up to $139.90 for a spray-coated case, a mirror PVD weight, the tri-mode PCB, and a carbon fiber plate. You can order directly through the Qwertykeys website, and there are also retailers in a few different countries. Check out the description for links to several. All right, now let's get into some pros and cons for the Neo60 Core. All right, we have to start the pros with several things about the physical aspects of the Neo60 Core. First, let's talk about build quality. The quality of the case and the weight here are very nice. We have 6063 aluminum, 6 stainless steel weight options, and 1 copper weight option. And we have a simple, relatively simple case shape in a unibody design here, but the quality and the weight, they are both very nice. There are a whopping 11 case color options to choose from. 8 of them are anodized and 3 of them are spray coated. The teal option that I have here is anodized and it is very smooth. Now, while lovers of more of a pure green may be disappointed, I really do like this teal color because it's really just not like any of my other keyboards. Then we have the easy disassembly. The 60 Core is a unibody case, as I mentioned, so there are no case screws to deal with unless you want to change out the weight on the bottom at some point, because you can buy them separately if you wanted to change it. And you don't even have to mess around with wires here because we have a pogo pin connector for the PCB. You can just lift it right out and put it back in without having to worry about connecting multiple wires, which is very handy. And at the same time, because of the mounting style here, you don't have to worry about tipping this upside down and the whole thing just falling out. Because of the gasket design style, you got some friction against the case, even if you use the silicone bean gasket mounts. So you don't have to worry about that happening. Now let's talk about those mounting options. I like that you've got 2 options here. You have a PCB gasket mount with those silicone beans, or you can go with the gummy O-ring mount, which is a friction mount that kind of seals the whole assembly to the case all the way around, and it gives you a slightly different sound, a little bit more consistency there. You've also got the option of going with soldered, wired hot swap, or tri-mode hot swap for the PCB, which is great, and you've also got multiple plate choices which affect the typing feel and sound, ranging from the firm and higher pitched carbon fiber to the flexible and thocky sounding polypropylene plate, with 3 other choices in between. Now, I do want to point out, I'll mention this again at the end of the video, I have the wired hot swap version. I have not tested the tri-mode version, so I cannot comment on the stability of the wireless connections or the battery life of that option because I haven't tested it. Now the PCB is also compatible with an ISO layout and either a 6.25 or a 7U spacebar. I have the larger 7U spacebar in here, and it's very easy to actually go in and just swap which size you have in VIA when you're customizing it to make sure that it's recognizing the proper layout. They've even included a plate fork, which makes it easy to install switches if you prefer not to use foam between the PCB and the plate, and it doubles as a tool to pull out the whole assembly when you want to change something. That's a lot of pros relating to the physical qualities of the Neo60 Core, but I've got a couple others to talk about as well. First, we have VIA for remapping. It's always nice to see that, and you've got a basic map set up by default here with one function layer and two blank layers for you to do anything you want with. So you have enough to set up different layers for Windows and Mac modes if you use both operating systems. All right, the last thing I want to mention in the pros before we move into the neutral category has to do with the sound. Whether you like the sound that you get is very subjective, of course, but the pro here comes down to two things. First, there are no design issues that lead to inherently bad sounds, meaning there doesn't seem to be anything causing bad resonances or ping or anything like that. I think just the way that they've designed it, the choices they made with the mount styles, you know, it all contributes to not transmitting or amplifying any negative sounds. So I like to see that. And second, you really can get quite a range of different sounds here. If you decide to use a firmer plate and you install the foams and use higher pitched switches, you can get a clacky and slightly quieter sound profile, or you can go with the softest plate and use zero foams and thockier switches and get kind of a louder, deeper sound like this, more marbly. And then there's everywhere in between because of all the different plate options, foam options, and switches and keycaps that you can use. So you can really craft the Neo60 Core to your own sound preferences very easily without having to do, you know, extra modding necessarily just to solve something that's a problem, because there really aren't problems to solve here. It's just a matter of tuning it to your needs. All right, let's move into the neutral category to discuss the aspects that are very subjective and could be pros or cons depending on your own point of view. Now, there could definitely be some things here that you would consider cons or downsides, but not everybody will, and that's the point. Now, as usual, to start the neutral category, we have the design. I already commented on the understated styling a little bit, but whether the design of the case appeals to you, of course, is subjective. As I mentioned earlier, you do have the more expensive 60CU if you're looking for a little bit more of a unique case design, but whether you like the style of the case shape and the weight on the bottom, it's all very personal. Next up, we have the feel and the sound. Both of the mounting options offer a cushioned typing feel because the contact between the PCB assembly and the case is softened by either silicone bean gaskets or the silicone O-ring. It's a bit bouncier with the silicone beans if you prefer that, and the overall softness of the typing feel is also influenced by your choice of plate. The stiffest typing feel would be with the carbon fiber plate or the aluminum plate with the O-ring mount, but it will never be as rock solid as a tray mount or a top mount. Now the sound really has quite a range, and that's going to depend on your choice of plate, foam use, and switches and keycaps, as you heard in the different sound tests. Next up in the neutral category, we have the 60% layout. This is likely the deciding factor for a lot of people with this particular keyboard. The 60% layout, it either works for you or it doesn't. If you're like me and you use your delete key and arrow keys all day long, then this layout can be frustrating because you have to access those keys in a function layer, which is more presses than if you actually had those keys. If it's just not for you, there are several other models in the Neo line from Qwertykeys that could be better options. Now, another thing that could be a downside for some people, but I'm leaving in the neutral category, is the lack of backlighting. There is no per key RGB here. You just don't get lighting with the 60 core. Now, the thing is, not everybody wants or needs backlighting, and it's also not a given that a custom keyboard like this is going to have backlighting. It's more of a standard feature on pre-built keyboards, and that's a big chunk of the market. But on these types of keyboards, it's just not a given that it's going to have backlighting. So that might be a deal breaker for you, and that's totally fine, but it won't be for everybody. All right, now the last three neutral items I have may also sound like cons, but again, not everybody will consider these things to be top of their priority list. First, there is no option for WKL or HHKB layouts with the Neo60 Core. The unibody case only comes with the WK layout. So if you prefer one of those layouts, check out the Neo60 CU, which does offer them. Another thing not available is support for a split spacebar. While the PCB is relatively flexible in that it supports an ISO layout and 2 spacebar sizes, unfortunately you can't do a split spacebar. So if that matters to you, that could rule this keyboard out for you. That's understandable. The last thing that I'm going to mention here in the neutral category is the stabilizers that are included. They're just okay. They perform all right with some lubing, but the clip-in style that mounts to the PCB actually pulls out of the PCB too easily when you're pulling keycaps. I pulled keycaps a few times going through sound tests and just testing out different configurations here, and almost every time the clip-in half of the stabilizers would pop back out. At least one of them would pop back out, and then I have to push them back down in there. Now, it does support screw-in PCB mounted stabilizers, so I would just probably use those right out of the gate and not use the ones that were included. I'm not counting this as a con because, again, this is not something that's even included in all custom keyboard kits like this. There are kits out there that don't include stabilizers at all, and you have to supply your own, just like the keycaps and the switches. So the fact that they gave them to you, but they're not the best, I don't think that's a downside for everybody. For some people it will, because they are kind of annoying. All right, that's it for the neutral category. Now is usually the time that I discuss cons or downsides. And for me to say something is a con rather than something in that neutral category, it means that I have to think it applies to at least most people. So when it comes to downsides that would apply to everybody, I'm kind of coming up empty here, at least for the hot swappable wired version of the PCB. Keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, I have not tested the tri-mode PCB, so I cannot comment on the stability of the wireless connections or the battery life. So there could be, good or bad with those wireless connections and the battery life that I just don't know about. Now, I suppose you could consider it a downside that the availability of the Neo60 Core kind of varies depending on which country you're located in, and also the shipping cost can vary significantly, and it can be pretty expensive. Overall, I really don't have much bad to say about the Neo60 Core. Certainly no deal breakers or reasons I would say to definitely avoid it. This is one of the best kits I've had at this price in terms of quality, and even with the fairly basic design of the case, it still has an elegant and premium feel to it. So let me know what you think of the Neo60 Core, and if you picked one up for yourself, let me know how you configured it and how you're liking it. I got nothing bad to say about this. It's great.